The two further offences relate to evidence obtained by Merseyside police during searches of Axel Rudikbana's home address as part of a lengthy and complex investigation which has been ongoing since the 29th of July. The additional charges are the production of a biological toxin, namely ricin, contrary to Section 1 of the Biological Weapons Act 1974, and possession of information, namely a PDF file entitled Military Studies in the Jihad Against the Tyrants, the Al-Qaeda Training Manual, likely to be useful to a person committing or preparing to commit an act of terrorism, contrary to Section 58 of the Terrorism Act 2000.
The case of the Southport killer is getting more confusing and disturbing. In today's video, we'll dive into a few key news stories that are shocking and make you think about what's going on. We will not only discuss these incredible events, but also get acquainted with the latest news from all over the country that can change our perception of the situation. The mystery surrounding the Southport suspect has reached an almost surreal level of intrigue.
How many more children are going inside our streets, Prime Minister? How many more children? How many more children, Prime Minister? You're going to do something? What's going to happen to our children? Yeah? Bye-bye. Like you say, so it's off you go. Make a real change, Prime Minister. Make a real change! Our children! Go away! You're not wanted!
Each new information causes a storm of emotions and raises even more questions, and the situation itself becomes more and more strange and unpredictable. Before going into details, I want to emphasize that everything I'm going to tell you is publicly available information. These are the facts that are being discussed everywhere, but there is still a thick cloud of mystery hovering around them, which haunts neither us nor you. Let's take this shocking situation in order. The suspect was supposed to appear in court, but suddenly there were reports that the hearing had been postponed. Why? The answers to this question still remain a mystery. He was eventually taken to the courthouse, but the intrigue is growing. He never showed up in the courtroom. Instead, he stayed in the cell, citing an unexplained illness.
I came here to pay my respects to the victims and families who are going through raw pain and grief that most of us can't imagine. I can't imagine as a dad myself. I am very worried about high levels of knife crime, and I'm absolutely determined that my government will get to grips with it. But today is not the time for politics. Today is the time to focus entirely on the families who are going through such pain and grief, and on the wider community, and of course a time to say thank you to those that responded yesterday in the most awful of circumstances.
There is no information about the nature of this disease, but his behavior, or rather, complete lack of activity, suggests that he is not going to cooperate. According to his lawyers, he insists on his innocence. Let's stop for a minute and think about it. Given that terrorist materials were found in his possession, including instructions for making ricin and the so-called jihad manual on his computer, one would assume that the case is obvious. But instead, we are watching this strange and disturbing story unfold under an almost unprecedented veil of secrecy. And this is not just an exaggeration. Members of Parliament were reportedly forbidden from asking any questions about the case. Journalists seem to know more than they are allowed to report, and even they face attempts to silence them.
Well, responding to the news, Tory leadership hopeful Kemi Badenoch said as more information emerges, it is quite clear that there are serious questions to be asked of the police, the CPS, and also of Keir Starmer's response to the whole situation. Parliament is the right place for this to happen. While we must abide by the rules of contempt of court and not prejudice this case, it is important that there is appropriate scrutiny. Badenoch's leadership rival, Robert Jenrick, posted a video on social media.
The dad of 3 daughters, the Southport attack hit me personally. Of course, the legal process needs to be respected.
So, let's go back to the issue of court appearance, which raises so many questions and emotions. The suspect's lawyers declared his innocence on his behalf. But why stick to this formality when the evidence seems so incontrovertible? This is simply absurd. Obviously, the case will be brought to court anyway, and the hearings will begin on January 20th. But here the situation becomes even more strange and disturbing. This date coincides with an important world event, the inauguration of the US president. Is this coincidence accidental, or is it an elaborate move to divert media attention from the trial amid the chaos surrounding a major political event?
Yeah, well, Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has piped up. She said these additional charges will undoubtedly be distressing for people in Southport. Excuse me. The most important thing is to get justice for Bibi, Alice and Elsie and their heartbroken families and all those affected by the attack. And nobody should put that at risk. The police and prosecutors have an important job to do in their investigation, pursuing every avenue and taking the action they need to ahead of the trial. We must support them and ensure that everything possible is done to deliver justice. Well, something people might find quite interesting is that Prime Minister Keir Starmer hasn't yet commented on any.
The BBC claims that the suspect denied the charges, but eyewitness accounts suggest the opposite. He refused to talk at all. Is this sloppy journalism, or is someone trying to control the situation? In any case, it adds even more confusion to an already confusing case, and it's just unbearable. And let's not forget about the strange details that are just shocking. According to reports, the anti-terrorism manual was stored on the suspect's computer for 3 long years before all this information became known. His name was deleted from the court lists. Despite this, we still haven't seen an adult photo of him. It just doesn't make sense.
It's 3 months since that horrific attack in Southport that left 3 innocent young girls dead, 8 others injured, along with 2 adults. And now the significant development, the announcement by Merseyside Police of 2 new charges against the key suspect, Axel Rudikabana. He will now face charges relating to the production of the deadly toxin ricin and also a terror charge relating to the downloading of an Al-Qaeda terror manual. This is what the Merseyside Chief Constable, Serena Kennedy, said a little earlier.
When he finally appears in court, he hides his face, and this causes a storm of emotions in me. What is hidden behind this mask and why? I can't help but wonder how the court could have allowed him to declare his innocence, knowing it would lead to an expensive public trial. With such irrefutable evidence, it seems like his guilt is already a foregone conclusion, and it's just shocking. But on the other hand, it's a case full of unexpected twists. Are we really going to have another shocking moment that will turn everything upside down?
This big rise, and it continues for a long while. Now, one X account drove that conversation in particular. It generally deals in anti-immigrant sentiment, and it did so in this case in the afternoon of the attack, saying the attacker was alleged to be a Muslim immigrant. We know that is not the case. Now, this account is followed by Andrew Tate. Here he is, the controversial influencer, and later Tate posts this, calling the attacker an illegal migrant, again, completely incorrectly. And then there's this. It's a much more specific piece of misinformation. It gives a name which we don't think corresponds to anyone we've come across, and it takes on its own life. Again, it spreads and spread, not as much as the general anti-immigrant speculation. You can see here the name in orange compared to the yellow general anti-immigrant sentiment, but it solidifies that narrative that this is to do with immigration and...
One thing is for sure, the trial on January 20th will completely capture my attention, and I will not be able to tear myself away. As the world watches Trump's inauguration with bated breath, I will be immersed in this case, trying to pull the truth out from under the veil of secrecy and disinformation. No matter what happens, this story will not disappear anytime soon, and I intend to witness its development. What are your thoughts on this? I am eager to hear your opinion right in the comments. See you.